Hey, what's up, everyone? First and foremost, you're probably wondering why I have this big microphone attached to my kitchen table. But I wanted to make this video, and I think it's important to start off with how I got to this moment. Let's go back to October of last year, and I was releasing my one and only book as of now, but I was releasing it in New York City. It's titled You Are Worth It. I worked 2 very hard years on it, and obviously it was a special moment. I wanted to always be able to remember that. I wanted my parents and my family to have that documentation of the crazy, beautiful, epic ride that the 2 weeks was through New York, DC, and a few other places. So with that said, I relied on a good buddy from growing up who is a wizard when it comes to audiovisual productions. And we started talking about, I think my mom even had the idea, hey, why don't you get Ben to document your book tour? And so that's what the plan was. You know, for those 2 weeks, we were going to work hard, document everything. And for all we knew, we were going to part ways after that time had ended. Now, fast forward almost a year later, and he's standing here awkwardly in the quiet behind the camera in my living room, and we are making more content than I've ever made before. And over the past year, and you know, again, going back that 2 weeks, whether we were on a train, a plane, whether we were running through a train station or going to iHeartRadio, Sirius XM, you know, you name them, the list goes on. We were always brainstorming and, you know, just talking of, first of all, could we create something together? And then once we realized that we could and we wanted to, and he had the skills to put it together and I had the skills to ramble on about various things, we decided, hey, we're going to do this. We didn't know to what capacity. But as time has gone on, every single day, you know, whether it's midnight phone calls with just adding ideas to the list that we have, and now it's, you know, I would say almost a whole notebook full of ideas that we want to do and things we want to create. Now it's evolved into, after we realized that we could, now specifically, how do we want to approach this content that we're creating? So first and foremost, we wanted it to be positive. We want it to help people. But I've always documented, going back to middle school, the old school tapes of Extremely Flammable, of me and my buddies, everything from couch surfing to fireworks wars to throwing a couch off of a bridge that was on fire. It sank 20 feet, came back up. It was still on fire. Just, you know, always documenting to remember, but to just go back, you know, in life and to those fun moments and, you know, see who you were at that time, see how far you've come, see how stupid you were at times. But, you know, all in good fun, all good stuff. And, you know, so I've always loved documenting. So it's been kind of a natural progression of, after the quarantine started, I just started GoProing more. I started getting out so I wouldn't just sit inside by myself for the past 6 or 7 months, whatever we're on now. So I started going on hikes. I started doing a lot more just because I wasn't on the road all the time. I wasn't, you know, speaking every single weekend. I wasn't going to school full time. I wasn't writing a book. So I finally, for the first time, really in 10 years since being injured, I've had the opportunity to slow down, to think about things, where I've been, where I'm going, you know, who I want to be, in the public eye, how I want to help people. And so all of these things in life I'm just trying to figure out. But this aspect, again, I'm super excited because, I'm learning that whether it's YouTube, podcast, the digital age platform is really incredible when you think about it. And I say that because from 2010 to around 2013 or 14, I didn't even know I had a platform. I knew that, hey, I was injured like a lot of other wounded warriors. I got knocked down in life. I was trying to get back up. And, I didn't really see the power in that, I guess you could say. Around, 3 or 4 years later, I was at an event, which this could be a whole story in itself, but I was at an event and I was in a meet and greet line of a couple thousand people, and a Marine whose medals and rank on his sleeve showed that he had probably been in combat since I had been in diapers. He approached me, tears filled his eyes. Obviously, I could tell that something was weighing heavy on him, and hopefully he was going to share that with me. So I put my arm around him. I kind of turned our backs to the cameras so he could be a little more comfortable. And, many years later, and I still can't comprehend fully this conversation, but he proceeds to tell me that he did not take his own life and kill himself because if I could get out of bed every day and have a smile on my face, or at least, force one on, he could too. And so at that moment, I realized, wow, even though I can't comprehend it, whether I want it or not, and I'm very honored to have it, but whether I want it or not, I have a platform. So in that moment, I realized that, kind of a epiphany moment. And then fast forward over the next many years, really up until this quarantine and COVID stuff started, kind of like the second phase, I realized I had a platform now, but I spent all of those years trying to not only figure out, how I could help people more, how I could reach more people, but really just, again, as a wounded warrior, as a transitioning veteran, I was just trying to learn how to continue on and live my life and make the best out of the situation that I had been dealt. So with that said, I thought for so many years, okay, public speaking is where I can make my biggest impact. I started off, gotta get used to these chords. I started off with a small group of elementary school kids in Sunday school. Over the next year or two, I worked up to the local Rotary Club in Columbia, South Carolina. Then the athletic teams at University of South Carolina while I attended my 4 or 5 years there. And so just thinking the whole time, okay, obviously the bigger group I can get, the better I can get, the bigger group I can get in front of. The bigger group I can get in front of, the more people I can talk to, communicate with, connect with, impact, and hopefully help, through whatever struggles they're going through. And so I was in that mindset for a long time. And also through that, I was getting extremely burnt out. I was such a yes man, through the hospital when I started speaking, through my 4 years of school, and not until very recently have I learned to not be a complete yes man, because I thought for so long, my mindset was, okay, even if it runs me into the ground, I'm going to say yes to as many people, as many groups, organizations, and causes as possible. Therefore, disappointing as few people as possible. Through school, I was traveling almost every single weekend. I was trying to be a public speaker, the best Medal of Honor recipient I could, the best veteran and Marine that I could, while taking a full schedule at school, and doing the vast majority of my 5 years of college work, studying for exams, papers, whatever it was. I would say I did 90% of it at 5 a.m. in the library, or on a plane, in an airport, or in a hotel room at 1 or 2 a.m. after I would do a 5 or 6 hour event all night. And so I just kept running myself into the ground. I kept wearing myself out, and I never got any time to rest my mind or body that, now looking back, was very much still recovering and still learning how to operate with these new injuries and new limitations, which everything can be adapted. So, I'm not saying I was struggling or anything like that, but, I needed time, I needed rest. But again, and a lot of this was even before the Medal of Honor, but I just always felt like I was being pulled. I didn't want to disappoint people. So going through school, I was on the way to an event in the car with my mom. She was going to drop me off at the airport, so I didn't have to park and pay for that, because if I would have paid for parking through those 4 or 5 years, we'd probably be doing this interview in a different condo. But I crashed. I completely crashed right there on the way to the airport, driving through downtown South Carolina. And I got emotional. I just didn't feel like myself. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I didn't even have enough brain power to think about the most basic things. I was just going through the motions, and honestly, I was almost like a zombie for those many years. And I had to cancel that event. I just didn't have anything left in me. And so instead of going to the airport, I went straight to the hospital, and I sat there all day getting fluids, breathing, just getting an immediate reset to hopefully kickstart a full reset, which I didn't do the full reset very well either. But as I was going through those couple of days and that hard time, I talked to a very good buddy of mine, a fellow Marine, best friend, Paul Ramirez. I talk about him in the book, but I was talking to him, and I'll never forget what he said as I was telling him about all of this. He just said, hey man, if you're not good for yourself, you're not going to be good for any of those people that you're trying to help. And, that was such simple advice, but it was very eye-opening because it's so true. So over the next few years of school and few years since that moment, I have focused on evolving my mindset and shifting my outlook on things completely. So instead of saying, okay, I'm going to say yes to every single group or person that I can and disappoint as few people as possible, I now realize it's a beautiful thing, but I now realize that even if I run myself into the ground, even if I say yes to every group I can, at the end of the day, I am only me. I am only one person. And inevitably, there will always be people that, in that moment anyway, or for that specific event, that I just can't make it. I can't travel there. I don't have the time. It just, a lot of times it's just impossible. And so now I'm to the point at which I'm so very thankful and grateful for, and I can't even express how happy I am about this. But I finally got to a point where it's still hard to tell people no, but no matter what, I've kind of learned to stick up for myself in the professional world. Thankfully, because I went through those tough times and those grueling years on the road, speaking, doing whatever it was, the silver lining that came from that, besides just actually doing all the great things and meeting all the great people that I did, the silver lining is I realize how far and how hard I can push myself before I know that I need to rest my mind, body, and spirit. And so, good or bad, you can learn something from every moment, every experience, and every person in life. And so, just always building on each lesson and realizing that I can't do everything and I need to put myself and my health first. I'm starting to do that, and I'm getting to a place where I'm not only sure of who I am and what I'm doing, but most importantly, something that I really haven't known since the moment that grenade detonated, and that is, where am I going? It's great to be motivated in life, but sometimes you get moving so fast and with such intensity that you don't take time to slow down and process what you're going through, what you're learning, the experiences that you've experienced, good, bad, ugly, beautiful. So not only have I learned it's extremely important just to rest, but with that said, when this quarantine started, I thought that I kind of had everything figured out. I have got my professional side of my life under control. I'm going to do the approach I just told you about. I'm going to speak as much as I can to as big of groups as possible and focus on where I can make an impact instead of just saying yes to everything. But then when COVID and this quarantine period started back in late February, early March, again, me and Ben had been kind of talking and in a way planning since last October in the book tour. But I don't think I would have ever come to the insight that I have now, and that is, speaking is not the biggest way to impact people, organizations, or the world. Do I love speaking? I hold it very dear, and does it mean so much when I do go somewhere and speak? I communicate with people, I connect with people, and then to have people after that come up and say, I look at your Facebook every morning before I get out of the bed with arthritis, and it gives me strength to push through that pain. Or, as a military mom, the things that you talked about today have truly given me perspective and helped me, with my one or multiple children that are in the military. And, even just pulling strength from people that aren't there, my mom, my family, if they've read the book, knowing what we went through together as a family, as a team. But to have people say, hey, well, tell your mom I can't wait to meet her. And it's just beautiful moments to be in person and connect with people. But over the years, and again, since this quiet period, arguably the first one in 10 years, started for me, this digital platform, YouTube. I've always loved social media. I've always posted my journey, good and bad, on there. But to say, make this video, to, make a video skydiving or wake surfing, all these years I've told people, hey, you can get through this. I did, you know, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 inch at a time, and eventually you can try to run that marathon, or eventually you can go skydiving or write a book or go to school at whatever age. That's impactful, yes. And when I'm there, they can see the scars, they can see a slideshow and hear me talk about it as they look at those pictures. Is that impactful? Yes, I hope, I think. But now, another epiphany moment later, and I realized that, hey, I can make a video of me actually, maybe not live or, in real time, but I can make a video one day, I can put it out the next day, and I can see a comment from the other side of the world or from someone in this, our country. Whether I'm on a hike and I'm breathing heavy, or I'm wake surfing and I have an epic crash, they can see me, hear me going through those experiences while knowing where I have been, how hard I got knocked down, what I went through, the injuries I sustained, 3 years in the hospital, 40 surgeries roughly. We lost count. But it's there. It's almost tangible. And now I'm realizing how powerful that is. And will I always speak? Absolutely. Do I love connecting with people in person, giving those moms hugs out there, talking with those veterans? Yes, that fulfills me. That gives me gratification. But at the same time, since the beginning of growing up and having my own individual thoughts in life, but really since waking up to this bonus round that I'm living now, after feeling myself bleed out and fading from consciousness in the world on that hot, dusty rooftop in Afghanistan, to wake up almost 5 weeks later again to this crazy but beautiful bonus round I'm living now, I can't help but to think not only what's my purpose, but while realizing my purpose of just wanting to help people and impact as many people as possible with the precious and finite time that I have left on this earth, my mission is not to get in front of the biggest companies anymore, or the ballrooms packed with 5,000 people. That will always be a part of my life. But now I'm really enjoying all of this documenting, so I can have it one day. But I've truly realized that the effectiveness and how immediate, these digital platforms can be. And so, with all that said, right now, unfortunately, COVID happened to the world, which is terrible. People have lost loved ones. People have been hospitalized, and many people have suffered physically, mentally, and emotionally, having to stay inside so much, not being able to go out in public places without a mask on. Yes, it's very difficult, and it's a tough point in our history as a country and a world. But, just my little individual piece of it and what I've taken from it. Yes, has it been hard living by myself, not really traveling, just throughout most days, just being me, myself, and I, and my thoughts that are in my head. It's been challenging, but through the hospital, all of those years, through the surgeries, and through all of the other challenges, whether that's school, whether that's deciding to join the Marine Corps, whether that's severe cramps on the football field throughout high school, late in the fourth quarter. You have to consciously take from what you've been through to get lessons from it. And you wouldn't be where you are right now in this very moment without all of the decisions you've made, good and bad. And so, thinking back, as daunting as it was to this quarantine period starting, and thinking, at the time, wow, I'm going to have 1 or 2 months completely by myself for the most part. That was extremely daunting. And if you had told me it was going to be 6-7 months, maybe to a year, even more, I'm glad I didn't know, because that would have been extremely overwhelming. Now looking back, I'm just so forever appreciative for what I have realized, what I have learned from my past experiences. Even though I went through them, again, after 10 years, I never really even had a chance to sit down, stop, take a deep breath, and think about things. With that said, it's time to document. I am not documenting stuff that I don't already do. I already go on hikes. I already go out on the lake all the time. I used to be always going professionally, with a little fun always mixed in, of course. But now I'm focusing on things that I already do, things that I truly enjoy, and just making the effort to make sure I document everything that I want to share with you. And through all of that, I just hope that, I can uphold the mission of trying to help people through positivity, and just tell people very simply that, first of all, everyone struggles. And struggle is, I believe, the one common thread throughout every single person on this earth. We have all struggled. We will all continue to struggle. And struggle is, as tough as it is, it's vital to becoming the best version of ourselves. So to just tell people that it's okay to struggle. You might not be the same physically, mentally, or emotionally after you get knocked down in life, after you have a life-threatening medical condition, after you get in a car wreck. From the smallest injuries or struggles, mental and emotional too, which are arguably even more difficult because people can't see those. They don't know unless you tell them. Regardless of how hard you got knocked down, you can truly come back better and stronger than you were before. And I always say this line, Ben's probably going to roll his eyes, but it's one of the most profound lessons that I learned throughout my 3 years in the hospital. And really, even looking over the course of my entire life in the hospital, I couldn't even sit up in the bed. My arms were tied up. My right arm had 30 fractures in it. I was still awaiting the 13-hour surgery to get that fixed. I had a trach in. I was breathing through a tube for almost 3 months, which is the worst. But in that extremely low moment, I decided to make at the time, very unrealistic goal of running a marathon. And it wasn't exactly that I just had to run a marathon. It was just lying there in that moment, not being able to even sit up in the bed. I thought, what can I do to prove to myself, one day, years down the road, eventually, hopefully one day, whether it's a year or 20 years from that moment, lying in the bed, I just thought, what is something I can do that proves to myself, to me, and no one else, What can I do to prove to myself that I'm still Kyle and that, I still got it. I'm still with it. I'm still hanging in there. Life hasn't got the best of me. And so I thought about a marathon. Most things in life that are worth having, worth accomplishing, worth achieving, can only be accomplished and be realized through very small, persistent steps. But I knew in that moment, well, first, if I could get my arms untied from the top of my bed. After I got my arms untied, I knew that if I could sit up, I could work on hanging my feet off the edge of my bed. If I could hang my feet off the edge of my bed, I could work on standing. If I could stand, I could walk. If I could walk, I could run. And if I could run, one day I could attempt that marathon. Today, I am still surprised, but I'm happy to say that I've crossed the finish line of that marathon 3 times now. And, getting back to struggle, and if I could just relay anything to you, I want to relay arguably the most important lesson that I learned through my time in the hospital. And that is that the smallest of steps eventually completes the grandest of journeys, which is amazing to say now because I was preaching that lesson for so many years. And yes, I thought it was true. I believed it. But, talk is cheap. And so when I crossed the finish line of that marathon, I'm thankful that I had glasses on because I was a little teary-eyed. But in that moment, it was just so powerful because I not only, many years later, accomplished that goal that I had set so early on in the hospital when I couldn't even breathe on my own, but that I showed myself that those lessons that I had been convincing myself of, that I had been telling other people, that I had really been striving to fully deep down believe, in that moment when my foot crossed the finish line, I wholeheartedly believed it. And I knew that it was true because for those many years leading up to that moment, since that time in the hospital bed, I could think back every therapy appointment, every surgery that I didn't want to get wheeled back into, every second of pain, every second that I spent fighting my machines, hoping they didn't start beeping again because I wasn't getting enough oxygen, because I was panicking, because I couldn't get enough air into me through this little tube by the time that I needed to start getting rid of it for the next breath. And all of those moments where the shadow of doubt started creeping in. Am I going to be able to do this? Can I go through this pain again? Can I go through this surgery and not even know if it's going to reconnect that nerve or reconnect that tendon for 2 or 3 months? But I have to stay persistent and stay working every single day in therapy. Thinking back after all of those things, to cross the finish line of that marathon, I knew that now I could not convince people through words, but I could show people through actions and through an accomplished task what they could do too. So now that you have some background as to what we're doing now and things we're wanting to create, and just our mission of wanting to help people through positivity, I just want you to know this is going to continue. Like many times on my journey, I don't know exactly where I'm going with it. All I know is that we're going to keep creating I want to keep connecting with people and keep putting good, videos out there, hopefully, so you can be a little entertained at times, but also, we all learn from each other. We all have our own journeys, and we're all, connected in one way or another. And so, just wanting to give you a little more insight as to who I am. And I look forward to hearing your feedback. Hopefully it's good. If it's not good, don't drop a comment. But we're thinking about a bunch of stuff. Again, we have a whole notebook full of ideas. If you have any ideas, please, leave us a comment. We're also, after this nice little investment, we're also thinking about starting a podcast, which I've never done. I have been hesitant for a long time just because, I don't want to say, okay, well, here's the name of my podcast. Here it is officially. I'm going to take off. I'm going to have all these types of guests, so on and so forth. But I'm realizing that I don't have to have everything figured out. If anything, I should probably be the one to be telling myself that from the beginning. But I don't have to have everything all figured out. I don't have to have the perfect podcast name. I don't have to have 100 guests lined up in a row. I just have to start. You got to start somewhere. Those small baby steps that eventually completes that grand journey. So right now, we're just going to keep creating, keep smiling, keep trying to do good things and help people. And please, again, if you have any ideas, if you want to hear me talk about, anything significant or any stories along my journey, any stories from the book, which we're going to get to, some behind the scenes book stories, and just kind of stories in general, like the call that I got from the president, to funny and serious stories along the way that at times were maybe just moments in time or experiences, but now with years of healing and self-reflection and deep thought have turned into life perspective, which I can't wait to share with you. But saving the best for last, which is thanking all of you. Thank you. And I wouldn't feel as loved and supported as I do if it wasn't for so many good people out there like you. And I just, hope and always strive to be a good person, do good things, just trying to make the most with this precious and finite time that, I've been blessed to experience again on this earth. So thank you so much for tuning in. I truly, truly appreciate it. And I look forward to many more videos to come. Next up, we have Saria from South Africa. These just keep getting crazier and crazier.